What's going on, y'all? We got episode 9. Let's Be Real podcast, man. Appreciate y'all joining in. We got a great one for you today. We're going to start off, man, like we always do. I got it. We got the red wine. So today I got one. If y'all watched the last episode, I wasn't too big of a fan. This one I'm actually a big fan of. It is the Castillo de Maluenda. So this is a Garnacha, which is basically just a Spanish Grenache, which Grenache is known as basically a French wine. But as y'all saw, red wine, but a lot more bold, a lot drier. Last week or last episode was more kind of balanced. So this one back to kind of my normal stuff. And with this one, you're gonna get oak, you're gonna get red fruit. So really good with some red meat, some lamb, but definitely something to check out if you like that kind of flavor. But man, look, we're gonna get into it, man. We had the NFL last night, Thursday night football. By the time y'all watch this, I guess it's gonna be out Saturday, so 2 nights ago for when y'all see it. But Thursday night football, man, we had Rams and Vikings. And look, man, great game. Had a little bit of controversy. We'll talk about that. But just to start it off, man, Vikings. I thought they would probably come out a little weaker than they did. They looked like they came to play, but couldn't avoid that dreaded post Lions game, like we talked about last episode, where every team that plays the Lions that next week they are winless, and so unable to avoid that, man. But still, good game. Sam Darnold played really well. But just wasn't able to kind of get that. And from the Rams' point of view, man, look, they're getting healthy, and we're going to talk about them as well. But them getting healthy, we talked about it. The Vikings having to travel cross country after playing the Lions, and Sean McVay is Sean McVay, man. He's one of the best offensive coaches and game planners in the league. So short week, but he made that Flores defense not look as dominant as it has been. And so let's start off with the controversy, man. So for everybody that watched that game, you know that we had the clear and obvious face mask in the end zone that was not called, that caused the safety that basically iced the game. Vikings, as that was going to be their last drive to try to go out and tie that game. And so, one, I just think if you're a referee at that stage of the game, something so obvious, like you just can't miss that call. And also as a referee, and I I'm going to ask a lot from referees because look, we ask a lot from our pro athletes, and at the end of the day, these referees, they're just like the athletes. These are the top people at their profession. These are the top 1%. You don't get to be an NFL referee without being the best of the best. And so you have to know situation. You have to know that if you throw the flag, it is reviewable. And so, as a referee, they got to know, look, we can throw this flag, we can review it to make sure, and we can go from there. But by not throwing the flag, you don't get the opportunity to review it. And therefore, we see what happens. Now you have a total controversy as far as how this game ends. Now, as far as, would the Vikings have been able to do that? Would Sam Darnold be able to lead them down the field? Who knows? But I know as a fan, I would have loved to see it. So from a referee standpoint, you got to throw that flag. You got to give yourselves, the booth, everybody the opportunity to at least go review it. And then lastly, on that point, I think the NFL, and this is where it's kind of a slippery slope, right? We've seen them try to do the challenging penalties and things like that with the pass interference, which I hated. But I think something like this, because it is technically a scoring play, this needs to be treated just like a touchdown would. And so, similarly to on touchdowns, they're not going to go back and look and see, oh, there was a holding on the offensive lineman before they threw the 40-yard pass for a touchdown, right? They're not checking things like that when they go to review it. They're just checking is should it be a score or should it not be a score, basically. On the touchdown, it's more so did they get in, did they not? But in this case, it's very similar, whereas it's very cut and dry. It was a face mask that was in the end zone, which resulted in points. Now, I don't think you should be able to do anything, review anything that's outside of just the ball. So like I don't want you reviewing a holding call on every scoring play, things like that. But if it's directly involved with the ball, it should be reviewable because it was a score. And so I think that's kind of how you fix that without getting too into, well, now we got to look at everything when there's a scoring play. And so I'd love to see that implemented just because, again, like it's at the end of the day, the NFL is an entertainment product. And I feel as a fan that not robbed, but it could have been so much more of an exciting game at the end had it not been for a missed call. And you even saw the Rams defender when he got the sack. You know, he knew he got the face mask and thought he was going to get the call. You know, looked visibly upset about what he did, and so it's again, it's you got to throw that flag just from the standpoint of let's make sure we get the right call. So but again, look, taking nothing away from the Rams, they went out, they played well. They didn't dominate the game, but they played well, and they were the team that deserved to win that game. And so, looking at them, man, look, Rams starting to get healthy, and with that kind of in that division, they're still wildly in it. And so, I think what we could see now, if again, it's going to come down to health with them. Cooper Cup is obviously a guy who's had injury issues, but I think they're in great position. I know they're second to last right now, but you know, they're 2 wins behind first place. And Seattle isn't exactly a team that we all look at as a dominant force. So that division is wide open. And I think we may see, I mean, the Niners struggling, Cardinals are the Cardinals, and the Seahawks. You don't know what you're going to get on a week to week base, a week to week from them. So I think the Rams really could end up winning this division if they can stay healthy. I know part of what a big storyline as well was that the Rams were possibly in trade rumors that kind of got shut down as far as the Matt Stafford stuff, but I don't think they're going to get rid of Stafford. And especially with their win last night, it'd be different if you're looking at 1-5 and you know then 3 games back in the win column of Seattle behind 49ers in the win column. I could see maybe shopping, seeing what you can get, maybe doing a reset. But the other one that has been in trade rumors a lot is Cooper Cup. And I think now because of this win, I can't see a situation. I know Puka has kind of established himself as that number one receiver, but with them winning this game, the division's very much still winnable. And you got a quarterback in Matt Stafford who is one of the best in the league. And you got some of the best weapons in the league as far as what you guys got at wide receiver. Kyron Williams is a monster. So I can't see them getting rid of Cooper Cup right now, which, good for some teams, not good for others. But I think now with that win, the Rams are looking like they might be able to win that division, and I can't see them breaking up that kind of core group, especially that Stafford Cup connection where they know each other, they play well with each other. So, yeah, I can't see that moving. But on to the rest of the games this week, man, because we got some good ones. We got some good ones. And so, kind of these big time top games that we got coming this week. First off, we're going to start. Look, big time game, and it's not just because it's my team, but we got the Eagles and the Bengals, man. So, 2 teams that I would say aren't quite playing up to the potential, whether it's with coaching or just whatever it is. You got 2 teams that came into the season with high expectations and are just not meeting those expectations. And so I think this game really could go either way. I think you got 2 teams where, Eagles still haven't been able to score in the first quarter, and it just not score, not even a field goal, nothing. And so you got that, but the offense looked like it was rolling a little bit there last week. It's the running game has obviously been solid, but you got that versus one of the worst defenses in the league again, and the Eagles. What they've shown in the last couple of weeks is they can somewhat score against bad defenses. So see if we can get out into that first quarter, get some points on the board because One thing I think could definitely happen with this is we could definitely see Joe Burrow and the Bengals, who are great against the NFC. We could definitely see them get out to a quick and early lead. And so the biggest thing I'm going to be watching for in this game is how that Eagles defense and secondary, which over the last couple of weeks has looked good against really bad offenses, how they actually hold up against their first kind of true test over the last few weeks where they've looked good. And again, with the offense unable to score in the first quarters, you're talking about, Burrow, Jamar, T. Higgins, and that could be a recipe where, if you don't get a score in the first quarter, you might be going into that second quarter down 14-0. And that's just, again, it goes back to what the Eagles' problems were last year. It's just, even if you do win, what kind of win is that really for you? And from the Bengals' point of view, man, can that defense hold up against an Eagles offense that at times has struggled? And so obviously with the Eagles, you got to run the ball. I don't understand sometimes where they get so away from giving Saquon the carries. I understand you might want to keep him on a carry limit to keep him fresh during the year, but it's shown that that's our best offense. And this is a game, that could really be telling as far as and could get out of hand really quick as far as with that Bengals offense and how we look against teams that are viewed as good, even though the Bengals record doesn't reflect that. And so, obviously I think good chance we see a lot of points scored here because again, I'm not fully sold on the Eagles secondary, but we'll just have to see if that Eagles defense can get pressure on Burrow and if that secondary can hold up against those two receivers. And but yeah, I think like I said, we're in for a good one on that one, and should be a fun one. And so speaking of what could be a big time scoring game, we're gonna move, man, to what had the potential of being a big time scoring game if not for the fact of injuries. And man, we're going Falcons Bucks with the rematch. And so we got Falcons and Bucks, man. Obviously, we know what's been going on with the Bucks and just the issues that they've been having. And so with them, it's almost just can you guys hold water until you guys at least get Mike Evans back, right? Mike Evans is supposed to be out for about 4 weeks. And so with them, the biggest thing is just going to be can you hold water while you don't have these big time weapons? And what is Baker going to look like without those big time weapons? So the next 4 weeks, man, it's also tough. You got the Falcons division game, which, you guys are tied in the division right now, but the Falcons have their one win against you. So this breaks the tiebreaker, go down a whole game, and you lose the tiebreaker against them. Could be a tough climb out, especially when, you got the Chiefs, Niners next. So you could be looking at, I mean, a good little 3 game losing streak. And the Falcons, on the other hand, in that same time, they're going to play the Saints and the Cowboys. We'll see what the Saints look like with their players getting healthy, but that looks like at least a 1-1 over those 2 weeks with the Cowboys playing how they've been playing. And so the Bucks, man, it's just you do have a couple light ones at the end there against Giants and Panthers where, these next 4 without Mike, you might be able to squeeze a 2-2 out of it. But on the other side, man, with the Falcons, offense kind of regressed back to, what we had been seeing, had some trouble last week. But not Baker, but Kirk Cousins against this Bucks team, last time we saw him had 500 yards. And so that schedules, I mean, we could be looking at an opportunity for the Falcons to really kind of take control of this division and really run away with it to a point where the Bucks aren't going to have a chance to win it. And, as somebody who picked the Falcons coming into the season to win that division, it's not something that I like to see them winning kind of in the way that I think they're going to win by getting this kind of runaway from the Bucks just because of injuries to the Bucks, who were playing phenomenally and Baker was playing phenomenally. So I think we see a lot of points one way, I think that the Falcons coming off that rough performance last week, I think they bounce back. I think they look really good this week. And I think they do start pulling away, like I said, over these next 4 or 5 weeks with, I think they got it. At minimum, the Falcons should end these next 5 weeks 3-2. And so we'll kind of see how that happens. But speaking of a team that's also running away with the division, man, we got Bills and Seahawks. So this is kind of an interesting one because I think both teams, to me, they're not quite as good as the record suggests, right? But both teams also have these crazy high highs, but also these really low lows. And so this game is going to be just I think, the matchup of who shows up this week. And so, Bills, obviously, they've added Amari Cooper, which showed dividends right away in their first game. So I think that one, solved one problem for them. And, Josh Allen still being careful with the football. But I think this game against the Seahawks defense, who has shown that they can't really stop the run, I think this might be a big time James Cook game. And for the Seahawks, the Bills defense is also very middle of the pack. And so if we've seen it with Geno, he's either hot or cold. No, you're not really getting too much consistency out of him, but leads the league in yards. So he can throw the ball around. He's got crazy good weapons. And so if he has one of those games where he's clicking, man, we could definitely see the Seahawks put up some points against, like I said, that Bills defense that's not looking great this year, very middle of the pack. And so this is, I think, going to boil down to the Seahawks passing game versus the Bills running game. Who can dominate in those facets of the game? And again, Bills, they've shown they've had that issue where, those kind of good teams they can struggle with while they beat up on bad teams. I think this is a chance for them to show again that they can beat a good team. Because the Seahawks, again, I don't think they're as good as maybe they are about as good as the record suggests because the record's not great, 4-3. So, but solid team and a team that's looking like they could make the playoffs. And so we'll see what happens from that, man. I'm leaning towards Seahawks winning this game because I think that Seahawks offense, I think they're going to be clicking. I think Geno's going to have a big game. And it's hard for me to see Josh Allen continue in a way where he's not turning the ball over. And I think if the Seahawks put up some big points quick, that, that run defense could get a little bit of protection because the Bills are going to have to throw the ball. And I think that's where we're going to see maybe a Josh Allen mistake or two. So, battle of the mid defenses, but I think, the Seahawks with the chance to kind of get some distance in that NFC West where, 2 games up on the Cardinals, depending on what they do. But if they're hoping to win that division, especially with the Rams getting healthy, the Niners, who, last place in the division now, but still only a couple games back, and we know what they can be. I think this is a game that the Seahawks really are going to look at as like, we need to win this game, and I think they are. And so, we'll see what happens, but I think it's going to be a good game either way. And so, speaking of, what could have been a good game, we'll see what if it ends up being it, but we're going to have the Rookie of the Year wish we had matchup, right? So we got Commanders and Bears. Unfortunate, hasn't been ruled out yet. Doesn't look like Jaden Daniels is going to be playing this game. I can't imagine, after not going through practice a full week, that he gets, last second they get him in there. But at the same time, man, look, Marcus Mariota, who is, I'm not going to say he's Jaden Daniels because obviously Jaden Daniels has been incredible throwing the ball, running the ball. But similar as far as Mariota has that same kind of play style, right? So don't have to change up the offense too much. You can run a lot of the same things. And look, he looked good last week when he came in when Jaden went down. And so, I think with Mariota having the comfortability in that offense already, and again, it's not like OC's having to Kingsbury's having to really change up his game plan too much. I think this still could be a game where we see a lot of points, and it could be a really exciting game. And from the other side of it, man, what this does for Caleb, Jaden being out, this could open up him to kind of take that lead back in that. I'm not gonna say I say back because he kind of started as the favorite, but take that lead in the Rookie of the Year race. You know, first couple weeks were rough, but man, he has been balling these last couple weeks. And so I think against a defense it's not great, Caleb has the opportunity to really go out if he can continue playing the way he has these last few weeks and put up some big numbers. I could see a big game from him, Bears winning big. And at that point, as unfortunate as is for Jaden, the best ability is availability, especially at the quarterback position. And I could definitely see this kind of propelling Caleb ahead of him in that Rookie of the Year race. And then again, he comes back. Now it's kind of just who's going to finish the year and how's everybody going to look the second half of the year when Caleb has been trending up since his first couple starts. And so obviously I chose Caleb as my Rookie of the Year. I think that with those weapons um, on the offense, the defense playing like it is, and they're coming off a bye, man, I think he can definitely put up some big numbers. And again, I call them as a playoff team possibly. That division is crazy, but this is a game, especially with Jaden out. Caleb needs to have some big numbers. He needs to perform well, and the Bears need to get a win in order to just stay in this division because it is absolutely crazy what this division is looking like. And speaking on that division, I don't even think we went over it, but you know, they have a chance here to get out of last place and have the Vikings move into last place after starting undefeated in 2 weeks, going from first place undefeated to last place in the division. So again, man, I think this is just in that division, you can't, we talked about it with the Vikings, right? And the Lions, a game that you should have won. You can't lose games you should win in this division. Just because this division it switches just like that from first place to last place, undefeated to last place. So a game where they're missing their starting quarterback, this needs to be a game where you show up and you put up some big numbers and walk out of there with a win. And so we'll see if Caleb can do it. I definitely think he will. But yeah. And so speaking of look, games you need to win, we got a matchup of two teams, and each of them is a must-win game for them. And for different reasons, we're going to go over it. But look, we got Cowboys and we got Niners. So typically, this game is kind of like, we know what we're going to get, right? We know we're going to get the 49ers coming out and spanking the Cowboys. But with how the Niners have looked this year, I don't know. And so, again, it's kind of been a trend for a few teams, but two teams coming in with high expectations coming into the year. Niners are basically coming into the year like, hey, our window is closing. Purdy's on his last year of this deal where he's making no money. And we've been to the Super Bowl. We've been knocking on the door for however many years now. And on the other side, man, you got the Cowboys. And the Cowboys, again, have a few 12-win seasons, flamed out in the playoffs, but another team that has set the bar of they are a winning team and at least a perennial playoff team. And, neither of them really looked too good this year. Kind of similar reasons, kind of not. 49ers obviously dealing with those injuries that they've been dealing with all year, but also just not quite looking as the defense hasn't been quite as dominant. That offense, you're without Ayuk for the year now, so that's one less weapon you're going to have. And Purdy, we've talked about it. When he doesn't have all those guys, he doesn't look the best. And that's true for a lot of quarterbacks, but Purdy especially, he more and more kind of mistake prone than I would say a lot of quarterbacks are, especially quarterbacks who are going to be getting top of the market dollar. And so with that, I mean, Cowboys, same thing, facing some injuries. You still got Mike out. Doesn't look like he's going to play. Their other D lineman, he's out. Doesn't look like he's going to play. And the offense is still just very Dak and CD reliant with some Ferguson sprinkled in. And so this game, man, it's going to be tough to call. But if you're Dallas, you're looking at it like, look, we need a win. We've gotten, these last couple weeks, you've got embarrassed on national TV. You have your bye week, which is nothing but noise because Jerry Jones is planning to fire radio hosts and calling out Mike McCarthy, saying that, the play calling has been bad. And so in a week where you should maybe be, out of the spotlight after that embarrassing loss you had, out of the spotlight and kind of just, recouping and trying to figure things out. And you got your owner out there just making headlines that you don't need to be made. You have the resurfaced of their former tight end talking about, the tours in the facilities while the players are working out, and how Jerry's coming out saying, you know what, even if my players didn't like it, that's tough. We're going to do it anyways. Again, it's just a lot of noise around a Cowboys team who hasn't played well and is just very, there's one way they can win, especially with that defense hurt. And so this, again, the Commanders in that division, Eagles in that division, depending on what they do. But this is a division that's very much in the balance, that it doesn't seem like Commanders for a different reason because their quarterbacks hurt, but no team is really looking to take advantage and really run away with it. And so if you're the Cowboys, one, mentally, it's kind of like we talked about with the Niners and the Chiefs. You got to be able to beat the 49ers at some point because you're probably going to have to beat them at some point to get to where you want to be in the playoffs. And on the opposite side, man, the Niners, you got to win this game just because your division, right? You're in last place in the division right now. The Rams are getting healthy. The Cardinals are what they are. I'm guessing they're probably going to stay around a 500 team like they have been. But then you also got Seattle, who, again, like we talked about, they have the ability to really play great football and win games with that offense, and their defense getting a little bit healthier. And so if you're the Niners, it's just, this comes down to a point. If you got to win because you got to stay in the division, right? You're 2 games behind Seattle right now. Seattle wins, you lose. That's 3 games. And it's just that, again, it's like we talked about earlier. A 3-game deficit in a division, that's hard to climb out of. And so I think if you're the Niners, one, you just got to win to show, just to stay in that division. And then also you got to win because, look, the last couple against the Chiefs, you looked terrible. And so you need Purdy to get going. Look, they should have Debo back. Kittle's still there. Jordan Mason is running the ball great. Your Trent Williams is still one of the best offensive linemen in football, if not the best. And your defense is solid. Like, you're missing people, but it's not terrible. And so this could be a game where if you lose it, you're talking about, okay, now what's wrong with the Niners? Because you lost to the Cowboys, a team that you normally dominate, and you're just missing Ayuk and CMC, I guess. But missing Ayuk, CMC, and if you can't get it done with Debo, Jawan Jennings should be back. And like I said, Jordan Mason, one of the best running backs in football statistically up to this point, and you still got Shanahan. And so, it's one of those things where this could be, if you got to win it just, again, to stay in the division and to prove that, you're not a middle of the pack team that's going to lose to a team that you normally dominate. And so from that, just moving into some things that I think are just kind of storylines, things that are kind of interesting that I'm going to be watching for this week, right? And starting off, man, look, Chiefs versus the Raiders, this game should be crazy. And so, look, I'm doing the show from Vegas. This is where I live. Hate the Raiders. But, man, look, Mahomes, first time playing the Raiders since they lost to him last Christmas. And in between that time, and that was their last loss they've had. And in between that, you've gotten Um, Pierce, the head coach for the Raiders, who went on talk show saying they got to see us. We got to see them, but they got to see us, and we got the blueprint on how to beat them. Big words coming from the Raiders to the Super Bowl champions. And so, Max Crosby, obviously, he's a game wrecker. He causes every team problems. But also, you got since that last loss, man. You also had coming into preseason training camp this year. You had that Raiders player, can't remember his name, but with the Kermit the Muppet little doll with the Mahomes jersey, the Mahomes hair, kind of mocking Mahomes. And when Mahomes was asked about it, he said, "Hey, it'll get handled when it gets handled." And so, look, first game where they match up since all that has happened, right? And then D Hop looks like he's going to be playing. And so, man, I think this might be one of those games where you might see the most locked in Patrick Mahomes that you've seen in a while. And so, I think we might have a big time game from Pat this week. And so that could be huge. We'll see what happens. But look, I'm hoping he handles it. I'm hoping it gets handled like he said it's going to get handled. And we're going to stick with kind of this Chiefs storyline and this DeAndre Hopkins storyline because, look, we talked about it when last time Joey was on, man, but Tyreek Hill making the news again, flirting with the Chiefs again. He sent out a story of the news about DeAndre Hopkins with some crying emojis, and then the next thing you see is a little cell phone emoji. It's this all of the same day as when we got the news Tua was coming back that he was saying, "Look, we're back. Start me in fantasy." So, man, Tyreek, man, he's gotten to the point now where he's funny, man. Like I don't know if anybody really knows what he wants. I don't know if he really knows what he wants, whether it's to be in Miami or get back to the Chiefs, but it's just, again, it's like it was before, man. Not a good look to have your best player on your team openly looking like he's kind of making a pitch to have another team come and get him. And so, obviously, man, something to just keep an eye on. Like I think I said it before with Tyreek, I can't see them trading him with Tua coming back and them thinking they still have a shot to at least get in the playoffs because that last playoffs team in the AFC, it doesn't look like you're going to need 10 wins to get in. I can see a 9-win team getting in there. And, if you can go on a little bit of a run, we'll see what happens. But I just, again, I think they think they're still alive for this. And with the trade deadline, in a week and a half, I think, week and a half or so, I can't see them, unless maybe if they lose to the Cardinals, but even then, trading Tyreek I just can't see it to anybody, especially the Chiefs. And so, we'll see what that looks like kind of going into the off season and things like that. But something to definitely just, it's funny, but keep an eye on as well, because again, it's just Tyreek openly just trying to, I don't know if he's trying to get to the Chiefs or what, but openly flirting with the Chiefs. And so it'll be interesting to see what kind of happens there, man. All right. And then another one that I think, as far as like just something to watch for, is this Ravens Browns game. And, on the surface, I obviously think the Ravens should roll. I think everybody thinks the Ravens should roll. But kind of something that's been a part of this, Lamar thing is he's not great against the Browns. The Browns usually game plan really well for Lamar. Granted, it was never when Derrick Henry was their running back. And so, we'll kind of have to see what that looks like. I think that gives Lamar that safety blanket. But over the last 5 games, man, Lamar he's thrown for 4 touchdowns and 6 interceptions. Couple that with the fact that, look, the Browns are going to get their best quarterback play they've had all year now that Deshaun Watson is down and they got Jameis coming in. Obviously, Jameis is a guy who's had turnover problems and issues before, but he has shown in his career with a good offensive coach that he can put up numbers. And so it's going to be interesting to see how that defense and how Lamar does against that Browns defense, and how that offense looks. I mean, obviously they don't have Amari Cooper anymore, but how that offense looks against a Ravens defense that you can get some yards and some points on. And so James coming in, I think that could be something where, again, I'm not predicting an upset, but if an upset was to happen, it wouldn't be the craziest thing I've seen or heard, right? And so I think that's definitely one I'm going to be keeping an eye on. Again, I chances are we tune into that game at halftime if you haven't been watching it, and the Ravens are up by 20. But again, I think there's that chance where it might be a little bit closer, or there might be some more problems than anticipated for the Ravens. And the last one, man, look, and I don't know if I said it on the podcast, but I know I had told somebody it, but Robert Saleh going to Green Bay to be a consultant, huge pickup for Green Bay. Huge pickup for Green Bay, whose defense has already been solid and has got a lot of talent. But one, I think my take on it was, if I was the Niners, I would have called Saleh to come and be my DC immediately. Because while I don't think he was a great head coach, as far as a defensive coach, I think Saleh is one of the best in the league. And so, one, if you're the Packers, you keep him away from anybody else. But two, you also get somebody in your building who's a great defensive mind and who can really help a defense that's already been doing well. And so that Packers defense this week and just moving forward, I think that's a huge get for them, man. And they've proved me wrong a lot this year. Look, I'm still not totally sold on the Packers because of Jordan Love, but man, they're playing well. And adding Robert Saleh to your staff, I think that's big time. And so I'll definitely be looking forward to kind of what that Packers team looks like and what that defense on the Packers looks like moving forward. And so going away from kind of big time storylines, big time games, I think, that everybody's kind of looking forward to. I want to give y'all, like we do every week, man, the game that I think is gonna be a good watch. That might not be like that big time headline game. And this week I'm going, and this might not, I don't know, but I think it's kind of in the middle ground. I'm going Dolphins Cardinals. You got Tua, who is cleared from concussion protocol. Looks like he's going to start against the Cardinals, who, look, that offense can go. Kyler Murray and Marvin Harrison Jr., that offense, James Conner's playing well. I think we're going to see a lot of offense against two defenses that don't really play great defense. And so I think, if nothing else, you're going to get a fun watch from that. And, hopefully Tua, we don't see, he doesn't look too rusty from that, coming back after those few missed weeks. And hopefully he stays healthy. Obviously I think we're all hoping for that. But I definitely think if maybe one of these games that you were watching at the same time as the Cardinals and Dolphins is going on is a blowout or it's not entertaining, I definitely think that would be a game I'm going to be tuning into to just see, because it might be exciting. And so, man, lastly, with the NFL segment here, we're going to end it with top five like we do every week. And so when we're going in top five this week, we had some switch ups, we had some change ups, injuries, losses, things like that. So starting at number one, consistent, it's the Chiefs. Until somebody knocks them off, I don't care how, I've said it before, I don't care how bad they look. I don't care, how bad Mahomes looks. He's the best quarterback in the league. The Chiefs are undefeated with one of, if not the best defenses in the league, and they find ways to win. And, going back to it, we talked about it last week. Mahomes, while he's been bad most of the game, in the fourth quarter and when the game counts, he's top five in everything, and he is Patrick Mahomes as he usually is. And so Chiefs are going to stay at number one for me. Number two, man, big jump. We're going Lions, man. Look, you embarrassed the Cowboys, who I would say they're an average team, solid team. You embarrass them, then you go in against the Vikings and, do work with them. So I think I would say Lions, man. Look, they were able to get that pass rush. It's still something that it worries me. But until they show me they can't get the pass rush and that defense is going to be a hindrance to them winning, I got the offense is clicking, Goff is clicking, weapons, their running backs, both of them are monsters. So I'm gonna go with Lions at 2. Number 3, man, Ravens. And again, we talked about Lamar's possible struggles against the Browns. We've talked before about them letting teams back into games, but still, said it every week. I'll keep saying it. No other team I would rather not play in the league on a week-to-week basis. Maybe the Lions now, actually, but the Ravens, man, still dangerous. Derrick Henry, Lamar Jackson. I would say, dominant, tough team to beat. So they're gonna be sitting at number 3, and then man, look, 4 and 5 were tough because I think there's probably I think those 3 teams, the top 3, are the best 3 teams in the league by a pretty good margin. And then there's just a lot of teams I feel like fit in this kind of 4 to 8 to 10 range, right? And so number 4, I'm going with the Bills, even though I picked Seahawks to win. So they might be right out this thing next week. But I think Josh Allen at quarterback playing, well, and you always have that chance or that kind of safety net of Josh Allen can go be a Superman. Adding Amari Cooper, which I think was their biggest weakness on the team. So defense, obviously middle of the pack, but when you got Josh Allen, who's going to make any offense good to very good, and then you finally get that Amari Cooper on the outside, you got Shakir who can work the inside, and so I got Bills 4, and then rounding out the 5, man, this one was tough too, but I'm sticking with the Vikings. We talked about their schedule earlier, lightens up a little bit after this last game against the Rams. And Sam Darnold, even with the loss, played really well. Justin Jefferson's still on the team, so any team with him, you're 1 play away from 7. Addison's still playing well. Aaron Jones playing well. And Brian Flores, although the defense has been a little bit shaky these last couple weeks, I still think he's one of the best defensive coaches in the league. And so until Sam Darnold, which I think that he's going to be kind of that catalyst of if they're a good team to a great team, or does he kind of revert back to what we've seen the last 4 or 5 years, however long he's been in the league, but does he revert back to what he's normally been in the NFL and kind of hinder them from going forward? And so as of now, I haven't seen that from him. So to me, they're still one of the best teams in the league. So got them locked in at 5. And so that's going to conclude us for NFL. But look, y'all know it. We got NBA. NBA is back. I'm going to touch on 2 games. Like I said, we're going to do a full-on NBA episode that'll probably drop next week. But I still got to touch on some basketball while we got it going. And so 2 big games last night, man. Going to start with and it's just both the primetime games, man. We're going to go Dallas and San Antonio. One, great thing for Clay, man. Love it for Clay. Went out there. He was kind of the biggest bright spot for them, I think, last night in a game where, mostly Dallas struggled. And, you could chalk that up to defensively from San Antonio because they do have some great defenders. But Klay Thompson, man, played incredible last night. And so good to see that for him, man. I think he's going to fit in, perfectly with Dallas, with Luka, with Kyrie. And so, yeah, from the San Antonio point of view, Wemby, obviously we know what he can be, but he's still just not very refined offensively. And so I think we're going to see those swoons from him throughout the year. Obviously, we'll get into where I think San Antonio falls in, the standings by the end of the year. But I think with, Chris Paul there, Wemby is going to get a lot better shots. He's going to get put in the right positions to score. Can Chris Paul stay healthy? We'll see. But again, Wemby, it's just, I think with him, it's going to be just one of those things where He's just going to have to his offensive game is going to need to keep getting refined because defensively he's probably going to be in the top one or two to finish in Defensive Player of the Years. And so, but yeah, good things from both sides, bad things from both sides, but it is, game one for both of them. So we'll see what happens with that. And like I said, we'll go into more of it on our basketball episode. And then lastly, man, we're going to wrap it up with Denver and OKC. And man, look, when I saw this game on the schedule, I was ready for it. I was ready. I thought this was going to be a great game, and it was. It was close, but OKC, big time, third quarter helped them kind of pull away and get the game kind of out of reach for Denver. And look, I've been skeptical of OKC. We'll dive more into that. But look, man, great win. And it looked like they were coming out to prove a point. I love the addition of Caruso. Gives you solid minutes. Smart player, good defensive player that only needs to give you about 15 to 20 minutes a game. And so I love his fit with them. I still think they're a little small on the interior, especially when you're talking about a team going against a team like Denver, who's, we all know who Jokic is, best big man in the league. He's going to make most teams bigs look small. But Denver, man, my biggest takeaway from them is they still have Jamal, Michael, and Jokic who can shoot that ball. But losing KCP, man, who's a knockdown shooter, that's where I really saw some struggles. You saw it a lot where guys having open threes, turning them down to drive the ball. And look, Christian Braun played great, taking nothing away from him, but he was one of those players where, shots iffy. And so when you don't have to extend your defense out to that 3-point line on that extra player, that fourth player, it really does help you defensively. And so, that's going to be kind of one of those things where I think it was really highlighted last night, but we'll have to see what that looks like moving forward, losing a shooter like that. But again, game one, we'll see what happens, man. Denver is obviously, I think they're still going to be one of the top teams in the West. OKC is going to be one of the top teams in the West. And so, moving forward, we'll see what happens. And make sure y'all tune in when we do the basketball pod, because that one, like I said, we're going to dive deep into everything and give you some good stuff. But that's going to be it for us today, man. I appreciate y'all tuning in. Enjoy your football tomorrow. And, as always, like, subscribe, comment, man. I want to see as much engagement as we can get on the YouTube. Make sure you follow us there, subscribe there, follow us on Spotify, Podcasts, Apple Podcasts, and we'll see y'all next time.